In March 2025, the US, under President Trump, sent shockwaves through North America by imposing sweeping tariffs on Canadian and Mexican exports. The announcement came suddenly, catching many by surprise and sending immediate ripples through the global economy. A 25% tariff on most exports, along with an additional 10% specifically targeting Canadian oil and gas, disrupted decades-old supply chains that had long been the backbone of cross-border trade. Industries that relied on seamless movement of goods now faced uncertainty and mounting costs. The world's longest undefended border, once a symbol of trust and cooperation between the US and Canada, suddenly became a flashpoint of tension and frustration. Lines of vehicles stretched for miles, as new inspections and paperwork slowed everything to a crawl. The tariffs were justified by the US government under the banner of national security, but to many, it felt like a declaration of economic warfare against close allies. Protests erupted, and business leaders scrambled to make sense of the new reality. Chaos quickly ensued at border crossings. Transport trucks idled for hours, customs agents were overwhelmed, and businesses on both sides of the border scrambled to adapt to the rapidly changing landscape. For Canada, this was more than just a trade dispute, it was an existential threat. The move shattered the long-held assumption that the US would always be a reliable economic partner, leaving Canadian business owners anxious and uncertain about the future. The announcement marked a dramatic shift toward American protectionism, sending a clear message that even close allies were not immune. The effects rippled outward, impacting not just North America, but global markets as well. Canada, feeling deeply betrayed, faced the painful process of watching decades of economic integration unravel. Factories slowed or shut down, and shipping routes were hastily rerouted in a desperate attempt to salvage business. The aftershocks were felt everywhere, from plummeting stock markets to rising prices at the grocery store. Corporate balance sheets took a hit, and ordinary families suddenly found their budgets stretched thin. The tariffs were more than just a policy change. They were a declaration that the old rules of trade and partnership no longer applied. The era of open borders and mutual trust was over, replaced by suspicion and uncertainty. The sense of betrayal was palpable. The economic model that had been hailed as a global success story was now being dismantled before the world's eyes, leaving workers and leaders alike searching for answers. The impact was not just economic, but deeply personal. Families worried about their livelihoods, workers faced layoffs, and communities that once thrived on cross-border trade now faced an uncertain future. The trust between the two nations, built over generations, was severely damaged, leaving a legacy of uncertainty and a future that suddenly seemed far less predictable. Canada's response was swift, resolute, and unlike anything seen before in its trade history. The government wasted no time in signaling that it would not stand idly by in the face of what it saw as an attack on its economic sovereignty. Prime Minister Trudeau took to the podium, forcefully condemning the US tariffs and accusing the American administration of economic aggression. He emphasized that Canada would defend its workers, industries, and values at any cost. In a bold move, Canada announced a sweeping $155 billion retaliatory tariff package, targeting a wide range of American goods, from steel and aluminum to agricultural products and consumer items. The provinces quickly joined the fight. Ontario, a key supplier of electricity to the US, threatened to cut exports, leveraging its strategic position along the border. Premier Doug Ford went further, proposing a 25% export levy on electricity to certain US states, a move that would have immediate economic consequences for American consumers and businesses. Ontario and Nova Scotia escalated matters by banning US companies from bidding on provincial contracts, sending a clear message that American firms would lose access to lucrative Canadian markets. In a symbolic gesture, Canadian liquor stores began removing American spirits from their shelves, making it clear that even everyday products would not be spared from the fallout. The government also canceled a $100 million contract with Starlink, a high-profile American tech company, demonstrating that the retaliation would extend into the technology sector as well. These actions were not just economic, they were political protests. designed to show the US that its decisions would have real, tangible costs and provoke a united Canadian front. The stage was set for a tit-for-tat trade war, with both sides escalating measures and countermeasures, raising the stakes for businesses and consumers on both sides of the border. The message from Canada was unmistakable. This was a nation determined to stand up for itself, refusing to be bullied or intimidated by its powerful neighbor. For many Canadians, the retaliation was about more than just trade. It was a fight for national dignity, for sovereignty, and for the right to chart their own economic future. The conflict quickly escalated beyond federal politics, drawing in provinces and affecting the daily lives of ordinary Canadians. From rising prices at the grocery store to uncertainty in factories and workplaces across the country, Canada's economy, deeply tied to the US, faced severe risks. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce warned of a potential recession. Immigration Minister Mark Miller estimated 1 million Canadian jobs at risk. The auto industry, a seamless North American entity, was particularly vulnerable. Tariffs threatened to halt just-in-time delivery systems. Flavio Volpe warned of factory shutdowns due to high costs from repeated border crossings. The Ambassador Bridge, a vital economic artery, became a choke point. Premier Doug Ford predicted widespread plant shutdowns. The human impact was devastating, threatening livelihoods and communities. The tariffs endangered the fabric of industrial towns. The risk of a deep recession loomed large. The economic threat was a real and present danger for Canada. The trade war's human cost was profound. Workers like Joel Selesky faced daily fears of layoffs. The uncertainty affected entire communities, from businesses to schools. Business leaders felt betrayed by the sudden shift in US policy. Flavio Volpe expressed shock at the disruption of cross-border partnerships. Ontario's removal of American liquor was a visible sign of conflict. Cutting electricity exports threatened American homes directly. The trade dispute quickly escalated, affecting daily lives. The tariffs caused real pain and hardship for families. The trust between Canada and the US was replaced by insecurity and anger. The conflict was not just economic, but deeply personal. The future for many Canadian families became uncertain. Canada is reimagining its trade strategy, placing a renewed emphasis on diversification and long-term economic security. As global markets shift and new challenges emerge, Canadian leaders are looking for ways to ensure the country's prosperity is not tied to a single partner or region. At the heart of this vision is the Port of Churchill in Manitoba, a strategic asset that is now being positioned as a vital gateway for Canadian exports to the world. The port's unique location on Hudson Bay offers a direct, efficient shipping route to Europe, allowing Canadian goods to reach international markets faster and bypass traditional US trade corridors. To unlock this potential, significant investments are being fast-tracked to modernize the port and upgrade the rail lines that connect it to Canada's resource-rich heartland, ensuring smooth and reliable transport. The ultimate goal is to export Canadian resources, like grain, minerals, and energy, directly to Europe and beyond, opening new markets for Canadian producers. This bold strategy is designed to build economic resilience, reduce dependency on the US market, and give Canadian businesses more options in a rapidly changing world. Canada is also strengthening its global trade relationships, actively joining major trade blocs, and forging new partnerships to expand its reach. Agreements like the CPTPP and CETA are opening doors to vast global markets, giving Canadian companies unprecedented access to millions of new customers. At the same time, Canada is pursuing new trade deals with ASEAN nations and the United Kingdom, further diversifying its economic partnerships and reducing risk. The message is clear. Canada is committed to building bridges, not walls, and to fostering collaboration and opportunity on the world stage. This diversification effort is more than just a policy shift. It's a national economic imperative, vital for the country's long-term growth and stability. With determination and vision, Canada is taking bold steps to control its economic destiny and secure a prosperous future for generations to come. The Canada-US conflict is part of a much wider global trade war, with far-reaching consequences. US tariffs on Mexico and China have triggered global retaliation and uncertainty. The era of cooperative trade is quickly giving way to protectionism and new barriers. Mexico and China have announced their own retaliatory measures in response. American consumers now face higher prices for everyday goods and essentials. Tariffs act as a tax, ultimately paid by consumers at the checkout. The trade war disrupts supply chains and raises costs for businesses everywhere. American farmers risk losing critical export markets. Manufacturers face production shutdowns and layoffs. The conflict is a force of economic destruction, leaving lasting scars. The global trade war creates a lose-lose situation for all nations. The economic fallout affects everyone involved, touching lives across the world. Trust in the global trading system is eroding, as uncertainty and tension ripple through international markets. The WTO, designed to prevent trade disputes and foster cooperation, is now paralyzed. The U.S. blocking judge appointments has left the WTO ineffective and unable to resolve conflicts. Countries are forming new coalitions to hedge against U.S. volatility and protect their interests. Trade blocs like CPTPP and RCEP are gaining importance in shaping the future of commerce. The world is fragmenting into competing economic blocs, each with its own agenda. This uncertainty hinders long-term business investments and strategic planning. The trade war affects global cooperation on shared challenges, from climate change to security. The breakdown of the cooperative framework threatens prosperity for nations worldwide. The erosion of trust has long-term consequences that may be difficult to reverse. The global trade system is on shaky ground, facing unprecedented challenges. The current conflict is about more than tariffs. It's about a systemic breakdown that could reshape the world. Canada is determined to fight for its economic sovereignty. Retaliatory tariffs signaled Canada's refusal to be bullied. The crisis accelerated Canada's pivot away from U.S. dependence. The port of Churchill symbolizes this new direction. Canada is building infrastructure for a diversified trade strategy. The goal is to reduce reliance on the U.S. and build global partnerships. The shift could realign global supply chains permanently. The U.S. may inadvertently push partners towards other global powers. Canada is becoming a more globally minded trading nation. The transition is difficult but necessary for Canada's future. The old assumptions of a special bond with the U.S. are shattered. Canada is determined to adapt and survive in a changing world.